Those who serve know the military can be very physically demanding. For many, that high level of physical activity and competition is a natural path to sports. Join us tonight as we talk with veteran athletes. Welcome to Veterans Voices. I'm Elena Kim. Tonight, we'll be talking with veteran athletes. But first, we want to pay tribute to some professional athletes who served. Not all veterans can be professional athletes, but any veteran can enjoy the camaraderie and challenge of competition. If you're watching live, we want you to be a part of this conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170, send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1, or email us at veteranvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. My co-host tonight is our Army veteran, Stephen Burchick. And I want to introduce tonight's first guest, who represents an innovative program that combines veterans and professional athletes. Please welcome Sergio Cuevas of Merging Vets and Players.
Sergio, tell us a little bit about your military career.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you guys for having me. So I spent just under 10 years, about 9 years in the Marine Corps. I served in 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines out of 29 Palms. Deployed to Afghanistan, did a little bit in Okinawa, Japan, Thailand, Singapore, did that little travel, 31st MEO. Recruited up in Sacramento for a few years, and then decided to go back down to 29 Palms. I know a lot of veterans out there might think that's crazy. I enjoyed it. It was home for me, so I decided to head back.
Thanks, Sergio. And you said you were 9 years in the Marine Corps. It sounds like you traveled the world. You got to be a recruiter, got to go to a lot of amazing places. How did you first become involved with Merging Vets and Players?
So Merging Vets and Players has a very deep-rooted place in my heart and in my service. Back in Afghanistan, when we were there, we suffered, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines suffered some of the toughest losses. We lost 25 Marines while we were there. We had about a little over 100 or more severely wounded, a lot of amputees. And we came back. We had, to date, we're at about 65 veterans from our unit that have taken their life due to PTSD. Because of that, one of the founding members of our organization actually helped create MVP back in 2015, 2016. When I got out in 2016, he saw I was having a little struggle with my transition. He invited me into the organization, and I honestly have never left since. I've been fortunate enough to come on board 2 years ago as a program manager. So.
Okay, you talked about transitions. Are there some similarities in the transitions of service people and athletes?
Absolutely. A lot of the transition for athletes and veterans are very similar. When we talk about the veterans and athlete community, a lot of people always look at the major ones where, oh, there's an athlete, he makes millions of dollars a year, so and so. Most veterans and most athletes only serve between 3 to 4 years in service or in sport. So most athletes that play, they're not in the field. They're not out there that long. They don't make a lot of money. So you take that away, they come home. Just like veterans, they come home. They also get assigned a disability pension, right? They get a disability rating. And then you take away that camaraderie, that sense of purpose, that sense of belonging. You know, we talk about in the veteran community, you take off your uniform, you got to hang up your uniform, your hat, your boots, right? You put them away, you never touch them again. Same thing happens for an athlete. You know, they take off that uniform, they hang up those cleats or they hang up those boxing gloves, right? they'd hang up that jersey. They never get to put those on again. And for a lot of athletes, that's just as much as a struggle for a lot of veterans as it is for a lot of veterans.
Yeah, that really brings it home, the similarities between the two groups, and I can see why this organization has had such an impact. You talked about when the founder reached out to you to get you involved. Since that first phone call or meeting, what was the most surprising thing to you about the organization merging vets and players that you learned throughout this entire time that you've been with them?
You know, it's really funny you say that. So the founding member, his name is Denver Morris. We served together in Afghanistan. When I came on board, brought me into the gym where it started. For those that are familiar with the sports world, you have Jay Glazer, Fox Sports analyst. He's our founder. Nate Boyer played a little bit for the Seattle Seahawks. Also served as a Green Beret in the Army. When they brought me into the gym, I thought it was really unique because they would tell us, check your ego at the door. Right? They didn't care who it was. They didn't care what it was. It was whoever you are outside, your ego, the things you've done. When it comes into this gym, when it comes into this environment, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is what you're doing right then and there, right? What you're doing to better yourself. And that is something that's always been stuck with me when it comes to MVP. And it helped me really reset who I was, because I spent so long in the Marine Corps that my world was the Marine Corps. Everything about me was sergeant in the Marines, discipline, this, that, the other. I'm a civilian now, right? I can't go out there and be gung-ho all the time. I have to be a human at this point. And so that was something that has really stuck with me. It has helped me a lot when it comes to reflecting on the things I've gone through and how I'm going to transition and grow and heal from that transition.
What parts of the country do participants come from now compared to when you started the organization?
So when I started, Los Angeles chapter was the main chapter. We had just opened up Las Vegas at it's called Extreme Couture with Randy Couture's gym out in Las Vegas. They had just opened up themselves. We're now in 8 different cities across the country. We also have a virtual platform. So we're in Seattle, Phoenix, Dallas, Atlanta, New York, and Chicago. We have the virtual, which covers everybody. So we get members that, they check into us for sessions every Tuesday from all over the country. In New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas City, Nashville, Kentucky, some of the most rural areas, which is great. In 2000, when COVID hit, we were one of the first and only organizations to switch to the virtual platform via Zoom. And so we never skipped a session. That's the unique thing about MVP. Happens every week for free for every veteran and athlete that qualifies. And when COVID hit, we never switched. And coming back when the restrictions were lifted and people were kind of starting to get back to normal, the last thing we wanted to do is leave a man or woman behind. We didn't want to leave any of our brothers or sisters out there to dry. So we maintained that virtual platform, which is huge. It's one of our largest chapters because we have members all over the country. We have active duty combat veterans and athletes that travel for work. So they'll reach out to us while they're on the other side of the world. And it's a really amazing opportunity for everybody to connect.
I really love the story about how the silver lining, there was something good that came out of the pandemic. I know merging vets and players switched to that virtual platform, and it sounds like it's been able to help even more veterans. So that's really amazing to hear. I want to ask you, Sergio, personally, what kind of changes have you seen in yourself since participating in the program?
Oh, a ton of changes. I'm a totally different person. It's funny, I have this conversation quite a bit too. Even the person that I joined the Marine Corps at 23 years old. So I was in the sense of veteran community or service. Most veterans get out of the military within their first 4 years. Most of them joined at 17, 18 years old. As a recruiter, that was mostly what I put in the Marine Corps. And so to get out, to join when most people are getting out, a lot of people looked at me like I was a little different, and I was. But I would say the biggest thing about me is I just have a really deep passion for being peaceful. Like I don't want to argue with anybody. I just want to work things through and have as much peace as possible. I enjoy the least amount of conflict. I enjoy just, I enjoy peace.
Yeah,
I had a lot of things. I want to say anxiety, but I was very much like just always on the go. And now I'm just like really reserved, and I'm very calm in everything that I approach.
it sounds like you really learned how to be present and in the moment, and that's such an exceptional lesson to learn for any of our veterans. Can you tell some of our veterans who are joining us from home, we know that merging vets and players connects the veteran with the professional athlete. What are some of the specific programs that veterans can expect to participate in when they're getting involved in the program?
So I'll elaborate also. I'm going to touch on that, but I also want to kind of elaborate on when it comes to connecting. So when we get the athletes that come in as well, what we tell everybody is, and again, it's that check your ego at the door, who you were outside. When you walk through this door, you come into this program, you are another person just like us, right? Yes, you may have played in the games, you may have, played in a Super Bowl, or you may have played in a World Series, or won some MMA titles, Muay Thai champions. We have a bunch of those. At the end of the day, you're a human just like us, and we treat each other as a brother and sister, regardless. And so when we connect, it's more about that peer-to-peer connection. We both struggle in the same sense, right? Whether it's injury, emotional, physical, or just everyday lifestyle struggle. And what we bring to MVP is that peer-to-peer camaraderie. So when you walk in, it's that 52-week session where we're going to work out for 30 to 45 minutes, and we're going to put you through a grueling I don't want to say a grueling exercise. If I can do it, anybody can do it. But I will say it's a very tough exercise, and the reason for that is because, like most people, when we wake up in the morning, we want to take down that wall that we put up every day to keep people out of our peace, right? And we want to have everybody receptive to the conversation, the huddle we have. And on top of that, we get to do a lot of outside activities, volunteering, sporting events. We'll go out and do hikes. We'll go out and do all kinds of different activities. And it's to instill that peer-to-peer camaraderie that we miss when we step out of the locker room or step off the battlefield.
That's perfect. I'm hearing a lot of similarities between this organization and what you're doing in the military. You mentioning the huddles, and then of course the physical activity that brings us together as veterans. Really quick, we've just got a few seconds left, Sergio, before we go to break. How can veterans get in touch with the organization?
Yeah, mergingvetsandplayers.org or vetsandplayers.org. Go in there, sign up. You'll have an opportunity to click a location, put in your DD-214. We don't need your social or anything like that. We just need verified service or a picture of you in your sport or overseas. And then we'll go out, we'll reach out to you individually, and we'll let you know like where you're at, when our next sessions are, and we'll invite you to come in.
Excellent. That's so exciting, and I'm
That's
glad
great.
that our veterans can learn about this. And actually, thank you as well, Sergio, for sharing your personal story. I think especially what you shared about your Marine Corps unit and how coming out even after they returned from deployment, unfortunately, there were still those high suicide rates. It sounds like you really benefited from this organization, and we hope other veterans can too. So thank you for sharing your story, Sergio. When we come back, we'll talk about the National Veterans Wheelchairs Games. Let's take a look at some video from last year's games. We're talking with veteran athletes. If you're watching live, we invite you to be a part of the conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. I want to welcome Sean Benson, who's an organizing committee chairperson for the National Veterans Wheelchair Games, and Davis Celestine, who competed in the 2002 Games.
Sean, tell us a little bit about the National Games, size, scope, who's involved?
Absolutely. So the National Veteran Wheelchair Games began in 1981 by a couple of VA therapists at the Richmond VA. It was an event that was part of the celebration of the International Year of the Disabled. That particular year in 81, there were 75 athletes that competed in 7 events. Now, 42 years later, the Games are a partnership between the Department of Veterans Affairs and Paralyzed Veterans of America. And these games are an extension of the incredible work that rehab therapists and veterans do to improve the health and fitness of our men and women who have served and sacrificed. This year, we have 562 veterans who have registered. Registration just closed last week for the athletes, and I'll touch on volunteers in this conversation. But we have 562 veterans who have registered for this year's Wheelchair Games that will be held this July in Portland, Oregon.
That's very exciting, Sean, and it's exciting to see the veteran being so, the VA, being so innovative with partnering with other organizations as well to host these. Davis, you're a U.S. Navy veteran. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved and what inspired you to compete?
Hi, thanks for having me. Like I said, I joined the United States Navy in 1998. I got my injury in 2001 in July doing a training accident. And from there, they flew me to Shands Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida. And from there, I spent like a two-week stint in Jacksonville. And after that, they shipped me off to Tampa to the James A. Haley Veterans Rehab Facility, where I did a stint about a year. I had some setbacks, but during the time being at the James A. Haley Veterans Hospital, that's where I was kind of introduced to some sports. At the time, I kind of blew it off because, trying to recover, it's a lot to deal with. But once I got to the point where I was interested in being involved, it kind of just have all these different avenues that I was kind of blown away by. And I just took it from the recreation therapists and some of the other athletes that I saw participating and just start to train and get involved.
Nice.
Hey, Davis, I understand that last year you won the Spirit of the Games award. What was that honor like?
Well, that's a great achievement because I've been going to the games now for 13 years. And what that is, it's a sense of accomplishment among your peers, because what happened is it's like they look for someone who is really outgoing, who has a personality or charisma to engage with novice, experience. And you're just someone who wants to see someone do better. So you support those individuals. And, people see that type of personality, and it's nothing wrong with it. But to them, that's like really showing what this games is all about. And it's the Spirit of the Awards is one of those indication that this person is actually there, not for themselves, but there to benefit the up and coming athletes, if it's a young man or woman, to get themselves involved and just give them pointers to grow the sport and get better.
Davis, that's such an amazing award, and I love that it kind of honors your reaching out to other veterans, learning about your fellow competitors. While you're reaching out to your fellow vets, are there any stories that come to mind about your competitors that you've met that you find interesting or particularly inspiring that you can share with us today?
Well, the great thing is about the sport is that it's kind of a platform that takes individuals who come in as an athlete or a novice, and then you could go as far as being a Paralympian. So for me, my sport of choice when I first got involved was swimming. And the guy who was next to me in the lane, I didn't know he was a Paralympian. So we had a little rivalry. We talked some trash. He was Army and being Navy. I'm like, well, I'm going to beat this guy. And come to find out, he finished like maybe a second and a half. And I would always remember this time because he came in at like 24.5 and I came in like 25.5. And I was so pissed off that every year I try to get him, but he just was one up on me. And ever since that incident, you just venture off to the different sports. But that was one of my big rivalry. And
That's
the
awesome.
game, yes.
Sergio, I got a quick question for you, or Sean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What is the impact on veteran participation on their families, or do the families impact the veterans who participate? Is there any crossover in that area?
Well, great question. We have an awful lot of families that actually come with our veterans every year to these games. Many of the families end up also becoming volunteers helping us to execute these games. And when you think about, with every one of these programs, it's not just about the veteran. It's about the entire circle within, the veteran's life, from their therapists to their families to, their coaches and then to their, peers. Davis talked about, the competition, he now looks forward to every single year. And all of that is, invaluable in the, the healing and the progress that, all of our men and women, need and look forward to. So going back to your question about the family, it's, they're a very important part of, the healing process and becoming engaged, in the community. One of the memories I have with the event, one of the first games I attended was in Louisville, and here I am walking down the convention center in Louisville, and here's this, young spouse of a veteran, has a toddler in tow, one in her arm, and she's got her husband's archery bow in a case, carrying it as he's trying to race off to wheelchair rugby. I mean, it takes everybody. It takes the village to
family,
pull these games off. It was just a powerful image that'll stick with me forever.
That is a great visual. You ought to have an artist do a rendering of that.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. Davis, you talked about how you kind of were introduced to this while you were going through your own physical therapy at the VA hospital in Florida. You kind of seemed like you were a little hesitant at first to get involved. And I'm curious, at what point in your involvement, how many days, how many weeks, how many months, how many years did it take for you to really look at yourself as an athlete? And what was that moment for you?
Well, and I kind of skipped over one of the key points. I am a quadriplegic, so it takes me a little bit longer to do a lot of stuff. But one of the key factors, like you just touched on, is the fact that when you're injured, you think that your life is over and you can no longer do anything until you get out in the community and start to see people like yourself and the stuff that they're doing. Like if it was hand cycling, that's something that was introduced to me, but I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. Till you see another either civilian or veteran partaking in it, and they're doing just as well. And you're like, well, if they could do that, why can't I? So it's almost like you come out of this shell or your bubble and you start trying different little niche and different things that will get you engaged. And one of the sports that just kind of gets quadriplegics hooked is quad rugby. So it's almost like assault and battery. You can do whatever you can in a game, but you don't get charged for like assault. You don't get arrested, and you go home with a clean record. You might see the guy or the girl at the bar, and you say, "Okay, well, let me buy her or him a drink," and it's all good. You know, like you said, it's a camaraderie. So those are the key factors that keeps bringing me back to the games.
I want to ask you another question, Davis. You talked about how you could kind of get out there with these other competitors, and it sounds like you could really be yourself. And it sounds like that really helped you in your journey. We asked our last guest this. What are the changes that you saw in yourself after becoming a participant?
You kind of get the sense of independency because now people in your same level or a little bit less, they kind of look at you, and especially like Sean was talking about, if your wife or your mom or your girlfriend or your brother or whoever's sister is helping you, you kind of get that little frown from the guys saying, you lazy, whatever. And it's like, you need to take care of yourself and push your own stuff. You know, it's like you're not that disabled where you can't help yourself. So you get a lot of razzing and a lot of trash talking, but it's only good encouragement so you can get better and get stronger.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I'm glad that you can kind of share your personal story. Sean, if other veterans are hearing this and interested in how they could get involved more, what would be your advice in terms of a first step for that person?
You know, I think with any one of these events, it's just a matter of, looking into it and getting involved. Start with the website and do your own research and homework. We couldn't do any one of our events with all of these programs without the support of our volunteers, our partners, and our sponsors. Our program alone, the Wheelchair Games, needs more than 2,000 volunteers to execute this event. And so if any of you in the community will be in the Portland area, or if you have family in the Northwest, encourage them to look us up, join us as a volunteer this coming July. You'll get as much or more out of volunteering for any of these events. And so look us up, wheelchairgames.org, and take a look at what we've got. This year it's in Portland. In 2024, it'll be in New Orleans.
And going back to a story earlier, you mentioned the veteran was involved in one activity and finished archery and heading off to something else. How many activities on average does a veteran participate in? What's the highest number and the smallest number?
That's a great question. Davis can probably answer that question better than I can. Davis, I'm going to throw that one up to you.
Okay, I jump in and help you out here. So the thing is, like for some sports like swimming, you could participate in 6 different strokes. So each different strokes is a different category, but it's all lumped under swimming. So someone could win anywhere from 6 medals in swimming compared to track and field. It's the same kind of concept. You could do so many different races, and you could medal in just about every race that you participate in. And then you have the javelin, shot put, and discus, and club. So someone who's in those categories could win 4 medals in one subcategory, if that makes sense. But you have different venues that have many subclasses, so that way the person could win multiple medals at that event.
And thanks for sharing that, Davis. Sean, going back to you, over 560 enrollees in this year's games. What do you think has contributed the most to the popularity of people wanting to get involved and wanting to participate more?
You know, we really, like everybody, we really took a hit during COVID. In Louisville, there were upwards of 600 athletes that competed there. And then the following year, there was wheelchair games at home. You know, we had to do everything virtual. But then in 2021, it was in New York City, and there were under 200 athletes that competed in New York City. Then last year in Tempe, it was right around 300 athletes. So really, it's, you know, the veterans have been just really hungry about getting back out and competing and linking back up with the, you know, the men and women that they have, you know, been competing with for years. And so it's really exciting to see that, you know, that things are starting to open up, and we're seeing it here in Portland as we get ready for it.
As more women join the services, unfortunately, more of them are going to be injured. What percentage of your participation is represented by women at this time?
You know, really, it's proportionate to what is on active duty. I think we've got, and I don't have that number in front of me. I mean, we have just under 100 women coming to compete this year in Portland. So, you know, it's about you know, between 10 and 15%, which is really, those are about the same numbers that you see on serving in the military as well.
Davis, we've got a question from one of our viewers for you, actually. This is probably from a fellow veteran who's probably thinking about getting involved. And they're asking, is it hard to start?
With anything, you know, to create a start, it takes a little bit of effort. But once it becomes a habit, you kind of spearhead this feeling that you're going to go on to bigger and better things. And especially if you start training at a local facility, if it's a YMCA or a local gym, a lot of the people in the gym look at you as an inspiration, because they're like, well, if this person could come out and get stuff done and they're struggling, but they're making that effort, that's where you start learning what your key factors are and becoming better and building that camaraderie, whether it's with civilians or when you meet up with your buddies at a practice or a different venue, to show that, hey, I've been working. And it's just the first initial start is always the start that's the hardest. But once you get over that hurdle, I know you're going to have some setbacks some days, but you just have to keep applying yourself until you get the goal that you have, you know, to make that achievement possible.
That's so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing. And Sean, you wanted to, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, if I can add on to that, you know, I would say, you know, get plugged in with your, you know, with your local VA, reach out to your primary care provider and get connected with a rec therapist or an occupational therapist or a physical therapist. Those are the men and women that can really get you plugged into some of the, you know, some of the programs, but at the same time, in many cases, the VA will pay for some of the equipment that, you know, that is needed for you to get re-engaged, you know, in a sport or discipline that you want to, you know, that you want to look at.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you both for sharing and for being on the show today. And we're wishing you both all the luck in the upcoming Portland Games. Thanks for being here and representing. When we return, we're going to talk about the Invictus Games. They have taken the concept of the veteran athlete competition to the international level. But first, let's watch this video that tells us a little bit about the Invictus Games Foundation.
continue to hear amazing stories of families coming together over online platforms. But please look out for those that have gone quiet or that are no longer visible on the chat sites.
Support of your family, your mates, and everybody here. We can do it!
We're talking with veteran athletes. If you're watching live, we invite you to be a part of the conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1 or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. Now we want to welcome to the show Angelo Anderson of the Invictus Games Foundation, Coach Dan Cashin, and competitor Stephen Davis.
Angelo, quick question. What makes the Invictus game so popular worldwide? What's unique about your group?
Can I say first, sir, before anything, thank you for your service and welcome home, especially in lieu of National Veterans Vietnam Day. So thank you, sir. And to answer your question, we, like you said, we take it to an international level. So we started in 2014 with about 13 different nations, and now we're 20 plus. So it's good to also have, you know, our brothers and sisters that support us, you know, overseas in austere environments that have, you know, the want and the need and the drive to compete in sports, and we have that opportunity here. So.
Thanks, Angelo. Dan, you started as a coach in the Navy. Can you tell us about some moments in your coaching career that moved you or inspired you in your role?
First, thank you for having me. Yes, I've been coaching the Navy since 2011. My favorite thing every year is when I'm bringing a new group of people together, and I get to see them kind of, you know, when they first get together, they take everything very serious, and, you know, there's kind of a wall built up in between them. And then after they're together, and they start to, sometimes that happens in training camp, sometimes it happens when we get to the games, but you see that wall drop and they're not so serious anymore. And you can look around and everyone's smiling and having a good time and joking around and just loving life.
Yeah, it sounds like they reach that level of comfort, and that's got to be great to witness.
Yeah. Stephen, tell us a little bit about your service.
Sure. I was in the Navy. I was an airman. I served for 3 years. I was part of the Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 8. And after my transition out of the service after getting injured, I've been a part of the Navy Wounded Warrior program for, 10 years now. And so a lot of my service has been on this side with a lot of the wounded veterans like myself and other people now that I've moved on to the coaching side.
So you were involved with Wounded Warriors in the U.S.?
Correct. Yeah.
And then got involved with the Invictus Games.
Absolutely. Same with Dan. He was my coach back in the Navy side, and I was with him for a few years. He turned me on to a local coach, actually former collegiate athlete, and trained with him for a while until making my move to the Division I, and then now I compete at that level as well.
Okay, well, that's pretty impressive. It starts with a local or a domestic program, gets involved with an international program.
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. And Angelo, I don't know if we asked you, how did you get involved in the foundation?
Oh, wow. So in 2010, there was a competition yearly called the Warrior Games. And myself being an injured vet from the Navy, they said, hey, you know, we have this competition for wounded, ill, and injured, and it's out of Colorado. You know, you'll represent your respective branch of service. You should try it as like a form of rehab and recovery and therapy. It'll give you an opportunity to push yourself and find your new normal. So I competed at the Warrior Games for 4 years, and in 2013, 2014 timeframe, that's when the opportunity to compete at the Invictus Games on an international level was born. Because the previous years of the Warrior Games would actually invite nations that are our allies. They would bring their team of wounded, ill, and injured to compete at the Warrior Games, and then it was just building a relationship from there. Every year we would see it, and we would have it here in Colorado, here in the States, and then once the Invictus Games was born, we said, hey, let's broaden this. There's a lot more brothers and sisters out there that can benefit from this type of competition. So that's really my journey. And now that I'm on the moderator side of the house, it's like a double-edged sword. I can kind of dip my hand in the pot.
Excellent.
I want to get back to Steve in a second. A little more about what inspired you to get involved. I think we've got a couple of images as well that we'd like to share. But once again, what did get you involved, and why did you stay with it?
Sure, that's a great question. I'd have to start by saying it wasn't easy. After I was injured, I kind of lost myself. I lost my purpose. I wanted to do 20 years in the service. I was kind of forced out of that. I had to move back home after traveling the world. There was a lot that was happening all at the same time. And I can say that I was in a dark place. I didn't have much support. I didn't know any other veterans that were going through the same thing. And I was kind of self-medicating and just was in a really dark place until somebody from Navy Safe Harbor reached out to me and invited me to a adaptive sports camp out in Hawaii. And I had turned down a couple other invitations before that, but when they pitched Hawaii at me, I kind of couldn't pass that one up. So I went out there, still hesitant. I was an able-bodied athlete for most of my life. And when they said, you want to play wheelchair basketball? I was like, no way. Like, I'm injured, but that's for disabled people. And I put that off for a couple years until I got that invitation out there. And I went out there, competed at 6 or 7 different sports, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with the sport. I fell in love with the competition. I fell in love with being back with my brothers and sisters in the military. There's such a special bond between all of us. And even after being injured and having to find your identity again, it was great with all of us being together. I don't think I could have done it on my own. And it was from there, making the team, that made me want to go home and start training and being like, hey, man, I saw some guys that are missing legs that are blowing me out of the water in these sports. I should be better. But the thing is they had time in sport. They had training. And so I was able to take that back home. And given the opportunity to work with some former collegiate athletes, it really helped me step my game up and helped encourage me to keep going to the gym, keep pushing, getting myself out there with other veteran athletes and seeing their stories. It just encouraged me to just not give up. This is such a beautiful program and competition that I hope anybody who's eligible can find a way to get in and compete.
Dan, Stephen was sharing just a moment ago about his hesitation, how when he first came in and was introduced to the idea of playing wheelchair basketball, that he kind of immediately shut that down in his mind. Is this a common experience for veterans who are participating as a coach? Do you see that hesitation? And then what do you do with it? How can you help someone move past that?
It very much is, especially with athletes who have played basketball before as an able body, and they're not used to using a wheelchair, so they don't really want to learn a whole new sport because it's so much different. So it was very true. I remember the exact moment in Hawaii that Davis didn't come to a practice until the very last day. And the first time he comes out and he goes to Coach Grant and says, hey, can you sub me in? And within 2 minutes, he did a behind-the-back pass for an assist. And me and Grant flipping through our sheets like, who is this guy? Like, so it was, but yes, there is that stigma where they're very hesitant at first. But once they start playing, or once they see someone competing in it, then they get the itch again.
Angelo, we had asked this question to a group earlier. Crossover events. Do some of the veterans participate in more than one event or activity?
Yes, Sean and Davis said it perfectly. It's, you'll catch an athlete dressed one way and it could literally confuse you because he's probably en route or he or she is en route to another sport altogether. And for us at the Invictus Games, there's actually the ability to compete in winter sports as well. So you will see that here as we go into September, where we'll have the seventh iteration of the Invictus Games, which will be in Germany in Dusseldorf. So yes, it'll be winter and summer sports from swimming to you name it. So yes, sir.
This question is for anyone who wants to chime in. What is the most exciting sport to watch for you? Not to participate in, Stephen, but to watch.
I'd have to say, gosh, the fan favorites is rugby. I mean, you get to watch somebody light
Yes.
somebody up. You see sparks flying. You see people flying out of their chairs. It's all in good sport. We slap each other on the back after we're done, and by far, probably the most exciting for the audience.
Oh my goodness. Angela, Dan, you agree with that, or do you have a different one in
I
mind?
I agree. And a close second would be seated volleyball, for sure. It's just one of those things where it's a system, and when you see it actually work and it's like true fruition, it's a beautiful thing. It's something about the team sports in general, like wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball, seated volleyball, to see everyone, take their individual skill and just kind of like hone in, and it just, I don't know how to explain it in words, but it's a sight to see, really.
Awesome.
And yeah, I'm a little biased because I'm the basketball coach, so I say basketball.
He's biased.
I also have fallen in love with rugby.
Nice. You can be biased, Dan. That's okay.
You're right.
And once again, here's something we asked an earlier group, family involvement. Is there a crossover between the athletes supporting the families and the families supporting the athletes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you see this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'll have
Steve.
to speak for myself. As being an athlete for many, many games, my wife and my kids are my driving forces a lot of the times. They are there in the mornings when I'm not feeling well, when I'm sore, and they encourage me to get up and get training. They know what I put on the line every day to go out to these camps and to go out to these competitions. And so for them to encourage me from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, while I'm at the competitions, while I'm away at competitions, my wife handling her business and all the stuff that she does, taking care of the kids. And there's just so much that goes on behind the scenes that it's just not shown enough. I love the side that is shown during these Invictus Games when they pan to the audience and you see just family members embracing these athletes and loving on them, whether they won or lost. I mean, it is such an important part of these games to have the athletes have their families involved, because if it wasn't for them, I definitely would not have the drive that I have now.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I love hearing about your own kids. Do they watch you when you compete?
Oh yes, yeah. Every time there's a live stream, if they can't make it themselves, they're watching, they're screaming, they're jumping off the couches, cheering for me every time.
Awesome. How old are your kids, Stephen?
I have a 13-year-old son and a 7-year-old son.
Oh my gosh, that must be so inspiring for them to see you on the screen. And Angelo, is it a formal part of the organization to get family members involved like that? And how do they reach out?
It's huge. It's literally second to none as far as like our operation when we're planning it. We're like, how and when can we get the families in there? Because we know that some athletes won't even show up if their family's not there. They're like, I want to inspire the ones that sacrificed for me as well, and that's huge for them. That's up there with like their service. They're like, I spent so much time away from them serving the country. So, I want them there. And we hear that. We want that. We want them there. And that's why usually at the Invictus Games, an athlete that is eligible, depending on whatever country they're in, 2 family members are paid for completely alongside their travel and their stay and their meals when they get there to the respective country that the Invictus Games are in.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Quick question, do some of the participants in the Invictus Games also participate or go on to participate in the Paralympics?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes, a lot of them, a lot of them. We have programs for ambassadors, actually. Some of them that have gone to the highest level of competition in that respective sport still come back and visit the Invictus Games just to inspire, to reach out, to hand a prosthetic to someone that just swam and or need to walk to the bench or something. So yes, plenty. Yeah, for sure.
Dan, Stephen, I'm going to ask you guys the same question, but Dan, I want to hear from you first. So you started this career in coaching, and you've had the opportunity to meet so many different folks and do so many good things. What do you see as your own personal goal as a coach moving forward with the Invictus Games?
My personal mission statement is to turn disabilities into possibilities. I don't like the stigma that's put behind that word disability, because when people acquire a new injury or illness, they tend to focus on what they cannot do instead of being open to what they can try to do, and or they don't even know that a lot of this stuff even exists. So a lot of my job is just opening the door and showing them what's out there for them.
Sounds like you want to open that door for more veterans. That's amazing. And Stephen, as an athlete, what about you? You've had the opportunity to participate now, and I love that your family is watching you. What are your next steps for you as a veteran, as an athlete?
Yeah, being a part of these competitions has been such a great experience, and I would love to continue competing at this level for Invictus Games. However, I have recently made a move over to the coaching side for the Navy Wounded Warrior.
Wow.
And if the opportunity is there, I would love to help coach Invictus or even, like I said, still compete. But I also play Division I National Wheelchair Basketball. So I have that also going for me. So I continue training in that and just continue participating in every sport that comes up. I love staying active. I love the competition. It drives me.
That's amazing. And a question for anyone who wants to jump in, what's a short piece of advice that you would give other veterans who are wanting to get involved?
Please be inspired by not only this video, but in your pursuit of just seeing yourself project forward, see yourself winning, see yourself being better, see yourself creating a new norm. To get involved with the Invictus Games, you can find us at the invictusgames.org. The foundation and the We Are Invictus platform are for you guys. We are here for you guys and gals. Get you out of the house, get you off the couch, get you out of a dark place. You can do this. You got this. And you made it this far. Just continue to go.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Put eyes on the sport. Go on YouTube. Look up anything on Google, search adaptive sports, just watch it. Find somebody that you can relate to, somebody that has a similar injury, see how they move, how they adapt to their physical abilities, and maybe it'll give you some sort of encouragement or a tip on how to navigate your own disabilities or injuries in your life.
I love that.
Yeah, your organization has a pretty high profile leader, founder. Have any of you ever met him or passed him in the hallway?
Yeah, he's a very personal person, so I have a feeling all of us have had a few different interactions. I've had a couple while I was on the court with him, a couple behind the scenes, at a concert. He's just a great person all over, so yeah, I've had a couple of them.
Wow,
He is
very cool.
great.
Yeah, so last year when I led the Team USA to gold, he actually put this medal around my neck right here.
Wow,
I don't know if you can see that.
beautiful. That's
So
amazing.
yes, he's very
Okay.
present all around.
We're talking Prince Harry. What's his official title? Duke of
The Duke of
Sussex?
Sussex. Yeah. Yes, sir.
That's
Our
amazing.
patron.
Dan, thanks for sharing. The medal is so inspiring to see. And then Stephen, thank you for sharing your advice to go out on YouTube and check out some of the athletes and see who you can relate to. I think that's great advice. Thank you, Dan, Angelo, and Stephen, for being on our show tonight. That ends our conversation for the evening. In a little bit, we're going to show you some resources if you want to get more information about tonight's subject. But first, we're going to honor the military career of Lieutenant Commander Fred Schobert in this month's Shadowbox segment. Lieutenant Commander Fred Schobert joined the Navy and was commissioned an ensign in December 1977. He began his career on the USS Higbee in Seattle, Washington as the gun boss. The Top Gun patch in his shadow box was not for flying, but for having the best gunnery scores in the Navy. He also served on the USS Bainbridge and Special Boat Unit 11 on Mare Island in California. He then became commanding officer of the Naval Reserve Center in Tyler, Texas. After his retirement, he continued to serve veterans in a 20-year career with the VA and is presently a veteran service representative for Contra Costa County. We honor his service. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation about veteran athletes tonight. We leave you with some resources and hope you found our conversation inspiring. Merging Athletes and Players combines veterans with professional athletes to provide support and inspiration. Find them at vetsandplayers.org. National Veteran Wheelchair Games is the world's largest annual wheelchair sports and rehabilitation event for military veterans. Reach them at wheelchairgames.org. The Invictus Games Foundation uses the power of sport to help injured and sick veterans on a global scale. Reach out to them at invictusgamesfoundation.org. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you, American Legion Post 246, honoring the tradition of the American Legion in Danville. If you would like to help sponsor Veterans Voices, you can donate to Veterans Voices care of Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation. Get in touch with them at diabloveterans.org. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for broadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa, so be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air on Monday, May 8th at 7 p.m. We'll be highlighting resources for veterans to pursue higher education. You won't want to miss it. To all of our veterans and their families, thank you for serving. To all of you who tuned in tonight, thanks for watching and have a great evening.